Welcome, everyone. This is All Minus One, and I am Bill. Glad to see you today. Today, Thursday, we are going to talk about some health and dietary stuff, just stuff that maybe you don't know, things you don't hear about, your doctor doesn't talk about, things that you have to go off the beaten path to find. That's kind of what I've been doing on Thursday, and especially because it is quite dangerous to talk about COVID on the YouTubes, although it seems to be getting a little bit more free. I'm not quite sure what I can and cannot say because everything that I have said has been correct about that issue, but YouTube has struck me down over and over again, and I've been vindicated over and over again. So, regardless, kind of the premise of the channel is that we live in a weak society, a society that's confused, that has a loss of identity, has all kinds of issues going on with it. And one of the largest problems in our society in my lifetime has been the growing amount of heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. Of course, all of them are related. Um, but we have this huge dysfunction of our physical being. So we live in a world that has a huge dysfunction of not only our physical beings, we don't take care of our bodies, our animal selves, our material selves. That is, we don't take care of our minds either. That is, our souls, our suke, if you would, and we don't nurture our spirit. In fact, most people have completely abandoned the idea of spirituality or the soul, and it's only about the body. And what they tend to actually do is because we've gotten rid of norms of, let's say, norms of moderation, if you would, norms of self discipline, norms of self control, and become this libertine, hedonistic society. What's really happened is we've embraced our passions. It's pure spirit, it's the spirit of yourself, and you make yourself the god and you do everything based on pleasure. And this just isn't a tenable thing for a strong society or for a strong character of an individual. It's just, it's not. You have to have discipline. I like to quote Jocko Willink in his book. It's a very simple book, like on a fifth grade level or lower, called Discipline Equals Freedom. And this is what you learn in a disciplined life, is that you actually have control over the chaos of your mind, of your life, of the outside world when you discipline yourself, which actually makes you free. It's a strange paradox, but it is how it works. So, in any case, today's subject matter is going to be on Irisin, which is a hormone, and it's a hormone that has been newly discovered and has some potentials for science and the biohacking sphere to help with people with obesity and having a good, proper metabolic functioning, or a system that has a proper metabolic functioning, that is. So, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to show you some articles or some scientific papers, but I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds of that because, well, that tends to get boring and it gets bogged down in jargon. But I am going to show you them, and then we're going to read a little bit of an article. And if I can get to it today, although today might be a little bit of a shorter stream, I'm going to talk about brown fat. Now, brown fat is related to this hormone, but you have to understand that there are plenty of misconceptions out there, and many people don't even understand what brown fat is. Well, hey, Shelly, which again, we'll get to. Maybe I'll talk about it some as we go. But if there's a part two to this next week, it'll probably be focused on that specifically. So, this is from Science Direct and from the Handbook of Hormones, Chapter 37. It says Irisin is one of the most the most recently discovered and isolated hormones derived from mouse skeletal muscle in 2012. Irisin is secreted from muscles in response to exercise and may mediate some benefit or some beneficial effects of exercise in humans. I have to adjust my screen, guys. Forgive me. I wish I had a better setup. My camera was a little bit further away, but because of this, I have to angle my screen so I can read well because my screen is very close to my face. Um, Not super close, but closer than I would like it. It's just what you have to do when you don't have a camera that zooms and all that good stuff. I'm going to bigly this a little bit more too. Should help. Okay, so irisin is secreted from muscles in response to exercise and may mediate some beneficial effects of exercise in humans, such as weight loss and thermoregulation. That's the key that goes back to brown fat. We'll talk about that when we start talking about brown fat specifically. Irisin contains 112 AA residues. Again, that's getting into the technobabble, right? Irisin is a cleaved protein of fibronectin type 3 domain 5. Again, mouse, rat, and human irisin are 100% identical. The rates of similarity are 85% for insulin. This is between human beings and those other animals, mouses and rats, those rodents. 90% for glucagon and 83% for leptin. Irisin is expected to be a potential therapeutic agent for the treatment of obesity and its related conditions. And then it says FNDC5 converts to irisin after exercise. An increase of irisin causes the browning of human and mouse white adipose tissue, which is something that is quite important because this is biologically, metabolically active fat that releases energy that keeps you warm. And in fact, this is what babies use to stay warm, to regulate their body temperature. They lose this ability over time, probably because we highly temperature and control and regulate our environments, being indoors a lot. Hey Val, long time no see. Speaking of Val, there she is over on Entropy. I was about to say I didn't chill out the Entropy. I should. There's an Entropy linked in the description of both the DLive and the YouTube chat. If you guys want to send super chats over there, that's how to do it. Until such a time that YouTube monetizes me, which probably isn't going to happen. And I don't think I'm going to do it anyways because I don't want them to have that kind of power and control over me. So Entropy it is. Maybe one day I'll do the whole Streamlabs thing, but you know, that's a bit too much involved for me to hook up to OBS, run OBS through this and everything else. I've already done the OBS stuff. I need a better system to run it. I'll put it that way. Even though my little all-in-one is pretty good, not good enough. So this is the FNDC5 expression and circulating irisin levels are modified by diet and hormone conditions in hypothalamus, adipose tissue, and muscle. Again, this is just a little study. And the abstract here, I'm going to show a few of these, and I'm going to read like an actual article that's going to be very comprehensible. Irisin is produced from fibronectin type 3 domain, yada, yada, yada. That's the FNDC5. And elucidated the relationship between serum irisin and the FNDC5 mRNA expression levels were elevated plasma irisin, yada, yada, yada. In normal rats, blood irisin levels diminished after 48-hour fast with leptin, insulin, and alloaxin treatments, and serum irisin concentrations increased, yada, yada, yada. Point is this is the relationship between these things. Again, I'm not going to get highly into all the technical babble here. I just want you guys to be aware. You can look this up pretty easily. You can educate yourself some more on it and show you that I'm not just talking a bunch of nonsense, right? Irisin, I hope in understanding and managing obesity and metabolic syndrome. And again, this is kind of new science. This is a 2019 paper. This might be actually the same paper I just had up. Not that one. Yeah, it is. Sorry about that. happens. Irisin and exercise induce myokine as a metabolic regulator and updated narrative review. So this is from 2016. And again, they're still trying to figure this out. This gets into exercise, and swimming exercise increases serum irisin levels and reduces body fat mass at high fat and a high fat diet fed Wistar rats. Now, again, this is a rat study, but basically the high fat diet with swimming increased serum levels. And irisin seems to increase general white adipose tissue burning for fuel, and of course increases that brown fat, which we'll talk about. The hormone irisin is found to confer benefits of exercise on cognitive function. New insight into the workings of the hormone irisin shows it has the ability to spur the cognitive benefits of exercise, holding promise for treating cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease. And the problem with this is when they talk about these things and these insights, what they're looking at is people who are already in advanced illness. So at best, we can slow down the process, maybe reverse it to some degree, but you're not fully stopping it. The damage is already done. It's already in advanced stages. And often you'll see studies coming out about these things, just various things you might see about, hormones or science and health and whatever. And they'll say these things don't work because so-and-so, we did this on these dying cardiac patients and it did nothing. For instance, famously, there was a vitamin study released several years ago that said exactly that, and then concluded, based on that study, that vitamins do nothing for you. That's absolutely absurd. When you're doing that with a dying population already instead of a healthy population, you're obviously going to get not great results. So, again, be careful how far you abuse your body. So let's look just a little bit at this article. In a study published in Nature Metabolism, the research team reported that irisin secreted by muscle during exercise could be effective therapeutic for addressing deficits in brain that result in Alzheimer's disease. Preserving cognitive function is a major challenge in increasing aging population, said study senior author, Harvard Stem Cell Institute affiliate. Yeah, whatever. Don't need all that stuff. Exercise is known to have positive effects on brain health. Right, because it lowers insulin levels, increases insulin sensitivity, all things I was talking about the last 3 weeks. I talked about this, insulin being a marker of longevity. Low levels of insulin are a marker of low inflammation. All of these things are related. One of the things that might be a key to irisin release probably is, although we don't know fully, but for sure, of the browning of adipose tissue is cold therapy. Now, if you recall from a few weeks back, I was talking about sharks being in cold water, and this particular one, I think it was a shark that lived a very long time or whatever animal it was. There was a couple different ones we were looking at. You'll start to see that there are these patterns of things of long-lived animals. One of them is low insulin. Another one is cold weather. It's quite interesting, and it's not because the cold itself makes you live longer. It's because of the environmental effects on your body and what your body does to compensate. Again, we basically try to mute most of these things for our comfort and convenience in life. Of course, I'm not advocating anyone go live out like a heathen and have no comforts at all. But what I am saying is that having some discomfort and having some sort of exposure to cold or heat even is beneficial and healthy, and would have been just part of our natural lives for most of human existence, right? Till very, very recently. So it says exercise is known to have a positive effect on brain health, which is why identifying key mediators of those neuroprotective benefits like irisin has become such a critical goal of research. It says, using mouse models, the team showed that genetic deletion of irisin impairs cognitive function in exercise, aging, and Alzheimer's disease, which in part caused by alterations of newborn neurons in the hypothalamus. Now, most likely, when it says genetic depletion, what they did was they removed the gene, or they placed a gene in that wiped out the receptors for irisin, and therefore effectively making it not viable for the animal. This is the kind of stuff that they do. The hippocampus is a compartment of the brain that stores memories and is the first to show signs of Alzheimer's disease. At the same time, the study found that elevated irisin levels in the bloodstream improved cognitive function and neuroinflammation in mouse models of Alzheimer's disease. Remember, I talked about this the other week. Alzheimer's is largely inflammation in the brain and diabetes of the brain. At least in simple terms. For the first time, we showed that soluble irisin and not its full-length partner protein is sufficient to confer the benefits of exercise on non-cognitive function. These effects can possibly go well beyond what exercise itself can bring. This is partially important in as much as irisin, a small natural peptide, would be much easier to develop into a therapeutic than the larger membrane-bound protein FNDC5. Now, you guys might not know what SARS are, but basically there are protein peptides in our system that we can make chemically in labs, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they're considered in athletics to be similar to steroids. They're PPEs, if you would. And these peptides do certain things like, was it KMS? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are different ones. They all have these, random number and letter names mostly. And in any case, some of them are like fat burners. Some of them make you release more growth hormones. Some of them actually make your body release more testosterone. The problem is when you're introducing these things exogenously, your body's own natural production tends to shut down, right? So the science wishes to find these things so they can then give them to people exogenously. It's much like, when men get a certain age and they go on TRT. Now, I'm not saying that those things are bad per se, but I would rather try to correct them instead of being reliant on a system. I'd rather try to correct them naturally through diet, through exercise, through cold exposure, through sunlight, through whatever lifestyle choices, sleep, right? Other things too, like stress relief can be in a number of manners, like breathing techniques, meditation, prayer. Of course, for those of you who are married or have a significant other or whatever, obviously sex bonding and that way is a stress relief. There are all kinds of things that we can do that are, when done properly, right, healthy and beneficial to us. They can also be detrimental to us. When I get into brown fat, probably next week, I'll show you some things, some traditions with that, about brown fat and children and how sometimes it can be detrimental, right? So balance in most things in life, right? Well, previous research used the parent protein. She added, scientists at this time delivered only the irisin portion through an adeno-associated viral vector. This is a adenoviral vector is a traditional vaccine, folks. Approach to the liver, similar to gene replacement therapy, and discovered irisin was able to cross the blood-brain barrier and directly affect the brain. Now, the reason why I brought up the adeno-associated viral vector is because this is the difference between old technology with vaccinations and using viruses to implement DNA into folks and the new mRNA therapies. Now, the mRNA has been developed for a long time, but you have to understand these things are different. And I believe the adenoviral vector is how the Johnson & Johnson vaccine works, if I'm not mistaken. What makes this study particularly strong is that we show Irisin's effect on cognitive function in not one, but 4 different mouse models. All right. So, as usual, guys, got a good bit I want to cover, and you guys can find this on your own. It's from Harvard University, their Stem Cell Institute. Hormone Irisin is found to confer benefits. Over here from Plus One, which is a great publishing outlet, because I believe almost every article on here is for free, and not it's not always easy to get free articles to get the full published paper. So plasma irisin modestly increases during moderate and high intensity afternoon exercise in obese females. And this is important because these women are already obese, and hormone levels change drastically if you're obese. Now, I'm less versed on the female side of things for the reasons that I'm a man, and I'm usually looking into what I can do for myself or other people I've known, of course, helping them out or whatever else. But the amount of body fat that you carry is directly proportionate to the amount of testosterone that you produce. So if you have a big gut, a big beer belly, and you're a guy, you're actually producing more estrogen than you probably should, and a lot less testosterone. And this again is why we want to get rid of body fat as much as possible. Now, some people, they're literally genetically predisposed to be a little bit more thick than others, to have a little bit more padding than others. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, obesity. And most of us don't even realize that what we consider obesity today is morbid obesity. What most people, I shouldn't say most people, a large portion, I think 30-40% of the population in the West is right now, is obese, not just morbidly obese. The people that are morbidly obese is a smaller percentage, but a lot of people in the West are well overweight and have a lot of white fatty tissue. So, what's up, Big Nick? Just got done to work, and he says. So, one more real quick, and then I'm going to read this other article, and it's actually a little blog, but it's pretty well put together. High intensity exercise causes greater irisin response compared with low intensity exercise under similar energy consumption. Now, this is under ResearchGate, but the paper is 100% free. And we're going to look at this real quick. Let's see. This is from 2014. Irisin is mainly released from skeletal muscle myocytes, that is the myocyte, a site being a cell, right? And promotes thermogenesis by browning of the white adipose tissue. So thermogenesis is your body producing heat. So this is one of the things, if you recall, several weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was, I was talking about metabolism in general and how calories in, calories out is just a silly way to judge your energy expenditure and your energy intake. It's a decent kind of gross guideline, but to have it as a hill to die on is absolutely absurd. And the reason why is because your body burns a lot of energy based on thermogenesis. If you're an individual with a higher metabolic rate, that is a higher resting metabolic rate, or let's say you're exposed to cold more often or whatever else, you're going to let's say you work outside, you're going to shiver a good bit, you're going to have more brown fat, you're going to have a naturally higher metabolic rate. Maybe you work in a freezer, like you're a butcher or something like that, a cold room of some sort. One of the ways that the browning of fat has been suggested to take place is simply uh, sitting in a 66-degree room for 2 hours. Now, I don't know if that's fully true or not, but that's what has been proposed. So, uh, what brown fat does is it literally produces heat. It uses triglycerides to warm your body, and that's how it affects works in babies. It's how they help self-regulate. So, although exercise has been shown to increase irisin concentration in blood and myocytes via upregulation, peroxisome proliferation, receptor Y. Yeah, see, this is all the technobabble I want to avoid. The influence of exercise intensity on irisin secretion remains unclear. But there seems to be increasing evidence on this that it's high intensity exercise that is what releases this. So if you're, say, a sprinter, if you're doing intervals, if you're doing circuit training, if you're doing HIIT style training, this tends to release the highest amounts of irisin. And it would make sense if you look at those folks because they tend to be very muscular and absolutely shred. So it says, therefore, we determine circulating irisin response following a single bout of running at different intensities. 6 sedentary males underwent treadmill running under 2 different conditions. Now, this is not a very efficacious study with only 6 people, but it can look at an effect, right? A low intensity, 40% of VO2 max, that is the max amount of oxygen that your lungs can take in and process, that's your VO2 max, oxygen trial, or a high intensity, 80% VO2 max exercise trial. The low intensity and high intensity were lasted for 20 to 40 minutes, respectively. All subjects underwent the 2 trials on separate days, and a randomized crossover design was used. Blood samples were collected before and immediately after exercise at 3, 6, and 19 hours. Energy consumption during exercise did not significantly differ between the 2 trial groups. It says the high intensity group significantly increased blood lactate and serum lactate dehydrogenase levels. Again, I'm not going to get into all that, but compared to the pre exercise levels, the irisin concentrations were elevated at the 6-hour mark at 18% and 19-hour mark at 23%, meaning that it's a post exercise effect. Much later on, the body had this response to it. This upregulation and response. And it's been known for years that the post-exercise metabolic effect is the primary benefit of metabolic priming for your body, right? Of revving it up, not the exercise at the moment, because the exercise at the moment actually takes a lot less energy than you believe it does. It is the process afterwards of your body compensating for that work and repairing itself and healing and all the other things that go on from the work. Pretty much, it's the idea, if you've never heard of supercompensation. Supercompensation, in brief, is when you work really hard, you do something, you take a break, your body brings itself up to that level. So the next time that you go to do the work, it's a little bit easier. So again, that is the very, very brief explanation of supercompensation. Maybe we'll go through super training one day. We really won't go through super training. It's like reading stereo instructions, guys. But this is the stuff I did in my 20s to, you know, to be a good trainer back when I did that stuff. The relative irisin concentration compared with the pre-exercise levels were significantly greater in the high intensity than the low intensity after exercise at 16, 19 hours, yada, yada, yada. So again, there's a whole study. You can go through and see how well it was done if you want. Hey, Thane, thanks for joining, buddy. But this is what we're going to take care of. And basically, guys, once I'm done this article, I'm probably going to be done for the day. I got about half an hour left in the stream, anyways. So, um, we'll see if it takes that long. I mean, obviously, if you guys have any questions or anything in the chat, I could try and answer them. I don't suppose myself to be a expert on this. I'm just a guy that has made a long hobby of this in his life since my early 20s, really my mid 20s, but my it's about 23, 24 when I really started getting into all this stuff. And it is really a passion of mine. Drinking that Dunkin', that industrialized coffee in plastic. I don't know about that. My wife bought it for me. I didn't buy it, so whatever. I'm gonna drink it. I probably will. Speaking of which, I think I will talk. I've kind of briefly covered it elsewhere, but I think I will talk sometime in the future about xenoestrogens and how you can protect yourself to some degree, and how you can help detoxify yourself to some degree from these things that we are constantly being loaded with in our modern industrial environments. In any case, from my biohack, the 9+ benefits of Irisin and how to naturally increase it. So I just, generally speaking, when I collect data, articles, whatever to talk about, again, I have a lot of background on the things I talk about of reading and whatever. And you guys should know. You listen to me. I have a wide array of things I'm interested in. So I have a lot of things going around in my head, and what I tend to do is skim the articles or just read the very beginnings and decide if I'm going to use them or not. So I kind of skimmed over this real quick, and it looked like it was a pretty good introduction. That's not too technical, and it's well cited, and that is something I like. If I had the time, guys, I really would, love to put on full on, like, just me presentations of stuff and editing videos and making it all pretty, but frankly, Bill's got other stuff going on. So the basics. Uh Pruptine, I think he means protein, andropin, and Irisin. Oh, Preptine. Let me make sure that that is correct. Okay. That must be something I'm not really aware of. That's okay. Good to go. So, Preptine, uh, andropin, and Irisin are three coworkers in the regulation of energy homeostasis. Irisin was discovered in animals and then later on humans in 2012. Since irisin works on muscles and fat, it is a myokine and an adipokine, meaning that it is an enzyme that works on muscle and fat. Myokines are a type of cytokines that have autocrine, yeah, a bunch of stuff. This is a little bit much, so I'm not going to read that again. I don't want to be too much in the technobabble for folks who, as many conversations as I have with people about stuff, like I can listen to someone like Dr. Rhonda Patrick or Dom D'Agostino, and understand what they're talking about. But then I go and read comments and people have no clue. So I kind of want to stay away from it. So, in any case, it gets lost in the weeds because then I feel like I have to define everything for everyone as well. So, one, balances blood sugar and fights diabetes. Irisin improves blood sugar regulation and increases glucose tolerance and reduces insulin resistance, meaning it makes you more insulin sensitive. That whole thing I talked about for 3 weeks. Irisin signals via AMP, active kinase pathway. And there are different kinds of AMP, cyclical AMP, and whatever else. Again, I'm not going to get into it. pathway for metabolic glucose uptake and fatty acid oxidation. It also lowers hemoglobin A1C. That's an important important marker as well. Irisin may also play an important role in the regulation of maternal fetal glucose homeostasis. Fellow nerds, Matt says, fellow nerds, you got this. Sorry, guys, I'm working with two screens. I got to figure out which one my mouse is on. In animal models, type 1 diabetes, irisin help repair cells. I missed one there. Oh, no. Yeah. Low levels of irisin is associated with impaired carbohydrate metabolism in infants. So basically, this is laying the grounds for with the activation of AMPK specifically, improved blood sugar regulation, the reduction of insulin resistance and glucose tolerance, and increases glucose tolerance. The low levels of irisin is associated with impaired carbohydrate metabolism. This tells us that this particular hormone that was just discovered 9 years ago is very important in controlling our metabolism and specifically our blood sugar. Improves weight loss. So again, this is some modeling of these little molecules going around and whatever else. And hopefully, again, not too technical here, but it's enough. Irisin improves weight loss by inducing PG1CA, or alpha is what that actually is. It says this is induced in muscles by exercise and stimulates many of the best known beneficial effects of exercise in muscle: mitochondrial biogenesis, anagenesis, and fiber type switching. Your fibers don't switch. That's a misnomer. You have a spectrum of muscle fiber types, and they basically, depending on how you train them, will gear toward one or the other. So there's type A and type B, and then there's type 1A and 2A and type 1A and 2B. They're basically, they will usually tell you fast twitch, slow twitch, and then the mix. Basically, your muscles work on a spectrum and they can all adapt within that spectrum. But we tend to like to compartmentalize everything in science and say, oh no, they're these type of muscles and these type of muscles. It depends on their actions. It depends on what the stimulus is. Spook, you might have almost missed us, but we're always, as long as YouTube doesn't yeet it, we're always on replays here. So the PGC1 alpha induces the FNDC5, which I talked about before, which is the precursor to irisin, and it promotes the conversion of white fat to brown fat. And that, again, it mentions thermogenesis. It influences the UCP1, which also contributes to the browning of white fat. Again, important. Brown fat has more mitochondria than white fat. White fat has almost no mitochondria. Mitochondria, if you guys recall from your basic biology, is the powerhouse of the cell, right? Not fully, not really, not completely, but that is generally the basic role of mitochondria is that they produce energy within inside the cell. They give it fuel. Irisin can also decrease food intake. So, meaning it satiates you, I would assume. Let's actually click on that link there. Central inhibitory effects of feeding introduced by the adipomyokine irisin. Okay. Let me skim this, guys, real quick. Okay. So in the final thing, it says we also found increased plasma any levels, which I'm gonna have to assume they annotate here what they are calling any. Okay. Norepinephrine. Okay. Adrenaline. So we have found also increased plasma levels of adrenaline, or norepinephrine levels, so supporting a role for the sympathetic nervous system stimulation and mediating increased oxygen consumption by irisin. Okay, and this would actually make sense for the cold weather training and why that has a browning of fat. Again, when we get into it, we'll talk about like let's say Wim Hof and his breathing techniques. We know guy's been studied as well as the students. We know that they can, through the breathing techniques, increase um, their adrenaline response and therefore cause the thermogenesis effect to the warming of their body. Wim Hof's been completely submerged in ice and have had electrodes measuring his body temperature and such, and they actually could see where his core body temperature was going up. So you can watch that. It's on YouTube. Go find it. Supporters, the supports the skeletal system. In mice, irisin released from skeletal muscles during exercise acts directly on bone by increasing cortical bone mineral density. And that will happen as you build muscle as well, or as you just lift weights and impact like jumping and stuff that can also mess you up, mind you, but that will cause your bone structure to thicken. Literally, your bones are like a lattice of a cellular matrix, and what happens is they get basically filled in as they become more dense. So they're still porous, there's still holes there, but they're smaller, and that's how they get stronger. It may promote bone formulation so that bones can better adapt to the increased load during persistent exercise. It can do it without browning response of adipose tissues when given at a lower dose. It may help with osteoporosis. It also provides resistance to muscular dystrophy and degenerative linked muscular atrophy. So, again, all things very important. Now, do you need to know what this hormone is? No. But it's more of the idea that this hormone specifically occurs when you exercise and can help increase brown fat, and these things are tied together, and then it has all these beneficial effects, which then tells us, of course, exercise we already know. I talked about this the other week with the last couple of weeks with insulin sensitivity and everything else, makes you more insulin sensitive. The more muscle mass you tend to have, the more insulin sensitive you tend to be. The less fat you have, that is white adipose tissue, the more insulin sensitive you tend to be. Again, all things that are going to give you more longevity and going to give you better quality of life in your advanced age. Irisin has also been shown to positively correlate with bone mineral density in adolescent women. I can only assume that they're looking at it doesn't say, but I can only assume they're looking at adolescent athletes when it says something like that, but it's hard to say. Is anti-aging. Irisin lengthens telomeres. Now, I talked about this before, about telomere shortening. Telomere shortening is a genetic marker of aging. Irisin also decreases with age, meaning as we get older, our ability to produce this goes away. One of the things, though, that science is really bad about figuring out is the cause and effect of this. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it because people got fat and lazy as they aged that this goes down, or does this naturally go down as we age, or A, B, option C, all the above? It does both, where maybe it doesn't go down dramatically as we age, but slightly. But because we also are lazier, our metabolism slows down a bit. That it is a combination of these factors. It increasing irisin may therefore decrease aging. It says it has a high anti-cancerous effect. Expression may help hepatic cancer, that is, cancer of the liver. And I believe one of the reasons for that is because it helps release triglycerides from the liver and whatever else. Um, but again, I don't need to get into all the mechanisms here. I basically just want you to be aware and kind of be aware that these things are activated by certain activities again, especially more high intense exercise. It has also shown to protect normal cells and created adipose cell death by 22-fold and cancer cells. Nice. Um, um, Irisin levels are lower in hepatic and breast cancer, suggesting a possible protective role. Protects the heart, brain, and vascular system. So here is a direct effect on our cardiovascular system. The number one cause of deaths in the Western world is heart disease, folks. A mouse study showed that irisin might have a preventative role in atherosclerosis. Administration of irisin protected against endothelial injury. Endothelial being the lining of the blood vessels, the heart, all that stuff, the endothelium. And if you weren't aware, it's the same thing that the spike protein in the coronavirus attacks. The amyloidated atherosclerosis, I'm not, ameliorated, sorry, it's that dyslexia. Ameliorated atherosclerosis by inhibition of oxidative stress. Also, irisin decreased the plaque area and the infiltrating macrophages and T lymphocytes in the plaques, and downregulated the mRNA expression of inflammatory cytokines in the aortas. So, talking about health stuff, I talk about this, bring it up quite a bit because, again, it's number one killer. The basics of atherosclerosis, heart disease. You form plaques. These plaques don't fully heal. That's why they formed a plaque in the first place, because you keep stressing your body, and eventually you get a clot, or you get a thrombus where it breaks off, and yeah, I mean, can go up to your brain. You have a stroke. Just thrombosis is not good. In any case, this helps mitigate that. Higher irisin levels may contribute to lower total cholesterol in both men and women. $100. I hit the link on that. It'll talk about lipoproteins, not cholesterol. Oh, look at that. No, it just says lipid profiles. Okay. Irisin is a myokine, which is mainly inversely associated with the risk for non-communicable diseases. Low density cholesterol. Lipoproteins. That's not cholesterol, folks. That stuff drives me nuts. It's just a protein carrier. Doesn't mean anything. I can tell you this, that you have a much higher morbidity rate if you have low cholesterol levels. Low actual cholesterol, not the lipoproteins. Cholesterol makes up every cell of your body, by the way. It's in every part of your being. So higher irisin levels may contribute to lower total cholesterol in both men and women, and may also decrease the oxidative stress from LDL, low density lipoprotein. That's not cholesterol, but whatever. In rats, sorry, being autistic here. In rats with hypertension, irisin was able to lower blood pressure by increasing nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is very important for health. Again, we'll talk about that maybe another time. It says HDAC4 overexpression can induce cell death, increased lactate leakage, and mitochondrial dysfunction. Irisin is able to significantly attenuate all of these effects and help reoxygenation, making it beneficial for stroke, heart attack, and other hypoxic events. So, if you guys don't know, hypoxia is a lack of oxygen. And that's what happens basically when you get a blood clot or whatever, you're not getting oxygen to your brain or those kind of things. So, again, this is the stuff that is helpful. Irisin may be the reason why we don't suffocate in aerobic exercise. So that's a speculation. Doesn't know. There's no link there. And granted, these studies don't necessarily prove these points here, folks. They just point to something. They point to its link. It doesn't mean that it is 100% true. And this is the wonderful world of biology. We don't know everything. And one of the reasons why I'm covering this specifically is because this isn't a hormone that's talked about very much or well known, and it was just recently discovered. It's an anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. It can attenuate inflammation of macrophages, shifting them towards an M2 state, reduce levels of, jargon, prevent oxidative stress in the liver, through the inhibition of the protein arginine methyl transferase 3. So that is the methylation. Every now and again, I'll talk about methionine and methylation and how that's not good for you. I will get into that again in the future. This can come from eating too much muscle meat. There are ways to stave that off, though. It's not hard. You just need to get a little collagen in your diet. Since Irisin works on UCP1, it can deactivate reactive oxygen species. Reactive oxygen species are basically what cause all the free radicals and stuff in your system. This is why I would genuinely advocate for a lower carb diet, because it tends to reduce that. Higher carb diets tend to not. Now, if everything's functioning properly, might not be as big of a deal. But the problem with higher carb diets is they're constantly raising your insulin levels, and insulin sensitivity is a marker of longevity. So, and animal studies, Irisin was able to ameliorate depressive-like behaviors. And it says by regulating energy metabolism, we talked about insulin resistance and depressive behaviors the other week. Increases brain function and motivation. I guess I am going to go over an hour because I am trying to finish this article. Irisin increases cognitive function in animals. Inhibition reduces neurogenesis, while overexpression stimulates neural differentiation. Can increase brain-derived neurotropic factor. BDNF, Irisin, by working on BDNF, that's brain-derived neurotropic factor. It may also work on the dopaminergic system, meaning it'll make you feel good. It works on your GABA system, same thing. This is GABA energetic system. There are different types of GABA. This is GABA A, I guess. In any case, this tends to make you feel happy, more or less, when this is imbalanced. Dysfunctions of the GABA energetic system may contribute to cognitive impairments in humans. Specifically, individuals with Alzheimer's have decreased cerebral GABA in the brain. Further, GABA levels in human CSF decrease with aging, which has been associated with cognitive impairment. And let me tell you guys, we know, as far as like Alzheimer's, other protective means, like simply learning a language and being able to play an instrument is highly neuroprotective of those things. Your brain's working. Uh, your body seems to be, generally speaking, a use it or lose it kind of system. And as we get older, we tend to stop using it. Now, don't get me wrong, entropy is a fact of life. Things start to degrade, after time. Basically, we hit 25, and as I, am fond of saying, everything goes downhill after that. But not completely, not quite. But you know, we can't live forever, at least not in this life, in this body. And I think, though, what we can do is try to live well for as long as possible, and that should be our focus. So let's see. It says it upregulates PGC1 alpha, which is it's usually underexpressed in Parkinson's disease and Lewy body disease. I don't even know what that is, but you guys can kind of get it. So you can get your irisin levels tested, which he talks about. I'm not going to get into that. You guys can look that up. Again, you can go find this article. Lower irisin levels can predict atherosclerosis and Betsch disease, breast cancer, chronic kidney disease. Cholesterol levels are inversely correlated. Now, again, no, lipoprotein levels are, but whatever. Coronary artery disease, fatty liver disease, and they're talking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Hyperglycemia, major adverse cardiac event. Metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is type 2 diabetes. It's the precursor, basically. Sleep apnea and type 2 diabetes. They came up with the name metabolic syndrome because they had so many incidences of type 2 diabetes coming up that they basically were like, well, we can't just label. There's going to be different levels of this. We can't just say all these people have type 2 diabetes. It's the precursor. High irisin levels can predict acute appendicitis. So too high can be a thing. Hypothyroidism, which you don't want, because that's going to be lower your metabolism. You don't want hyperthyroidism either, but your thyroid should be pretty functioning, healthy. And if you didn't know, your thyroid regulates your metabolism for the most part. There are other factors, but it's the prime thing, or at least by modern scientific standards. Obesity and morbid obesity. And it says here, probably signaling resistance. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, pregnancy increases through pregnancy. Type 1 diabetes. Higher levels may indicate irisin resistance. That makes sense. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see. It says higher in the summer, winter, but lower in the spring and fall. Again, weather. Hot and cold. It's good to be exposed to hot and cold, folks. So how to increase it? Well, holy basil's a way. They talk about high-fat diet. We're going to kind of fly through these. Exercise. It says a high-fat diet increases browning of tissue by upregulating of UCP1. Exercise, depending on the muscle contraction and intensity of exercise. So more intense the exercise, the more irisin you'll produce. And I showed you that study. Yeah, it's just one study. It's a very small study. But you can go find others. That seems to be the case. Also depends on the muscle mass. Exercise increases irisin much more in lean women than lean men. Interesting. So resistance exercise, high intensity strength training, increases irisin more than endurance training. He's got 2 studies there linked. Endurance training has 2 times more than aerobic exercise. HIIT, high intensity interval training, increase it 6 hours for 13 hours. Acute aerobic exercise, swimming, shown in rats, and then low intensity exercise. So it increases no matter what, but the more intense the exercise. You guys have to realize too, exercise intensity is all relative. It's relative to you and your fitness level. Cold and heat thermogenesis. Cold vest, hats, ice plunges, sauna, shivering, sweating. Hormones, deficiency in estrogen, growth hormone, leptin, myostatin inhibitors. CoQ10, holy basil. CoQ10 is an important enzyme that your heart needs. So you'll find lots of heart supplements. Holy basil is just a supplement. IGF-1 is insulin-like growth factor 1. And then there's some drugs, metformin, which we talked kind of sort of about the other week. A lot of biohackers use for life extension. Oh, and it even talks about vibration training. What decreases irisin? AMPK inhibition, caloric restriction, short-term and subcutaneous fat, chronic bad sleep. So basically, a guy like me, we never have it good. Chronic bad sleep, fasting, insulin decreases irisin and plasma, but increased irisin in the hypothalamus, myostatin, and some other stuff, whatever. Caveats: obesity, insulin resistance may promote irisin resistance. That would mean higher levels of circulating irisin would have less of an effect on fat tissue. Right. And here's mechanisms of action, all kinds of stuff you guys might want to know about. So let me get back up to the top of the article in case you guys want to find that. Assalamu alaikum, Bill. Well, what is it? Salam. See, I'm going to mess it up if I say it back. Was it salam alaikum? I don't speak Arabic, bud. What even is cholesterol? Cholesterol is, I'll just bring it up for you. Is the precursor to sterol, to all steroidal hormones. Let's find Science Direct because they tend to have the best. Have the best little overviews that are correct. So, cholesterol is a 3-hydroxy 5,6-chlorostine. Is a steroid and contains the carbon skeleton of cyclopino. Yeah, okay. Big old words that would take me minutes to figure out, which consists of 3 6-membrane rings and 5 membrane rings. And then it talks about low density lipoproteins. That's what carries it, or high density lipoproteins. And that's what it gets into all this. But basically, cholesterol is a, let's see, here's another one. Here we go. Cholesterol is one of the main constituents of plasma membranes. Cholesterol is in every cell of your body, guys. So, physiology, cholesterol. Hold on. I'm trying to read from across the room now. Let me get my screen back up here. Cholesterol is the precursor of all steroid hormones, cholesterol esters, and bile acids. That is bile that dissolves fat through digestion, right? And breaks it down so you can use it for energy, and is a component of the plasma membrane of cells. Total cholesterol consists of free cholesterol and cholesterol esters. Serum cholesterol is derived from the diet and is synthesized in the liver. That is not true. Dietary cholesterol has no effect on your serum cholesterol levels, from my understanding. I don't know why that would be in there. Dietary cholesterol was thought to do that, which is why they told you not to eat eggs for some time. But that's not the case. They know better now. So when was this dated? 2013. Low density lipoproteins consist mostly of protein, are rich in cholesterol, and derive from a breakdown of very low density whatever. So this protein, the lipoprotein, is a carrier because the cholesterol um, is hydrophilic. It doesn't like water, plasma. It can't just float in there. It won't, it won't mix or emulsify. It has to be carried by this protein carrier. And again, I'm trying to give you like a really basic kind of breakdown, not overly technical here. And so what the cholesterol tends to be used for when it's being taken along the protein carrier is to repair damage done to your system. So it's kind of like plastering on your cells, and then your cell does whatever on the inside and heals itself and whatever. The reason why modern science doctors look at this as a bad thing is because the cholesterol doing its job by basically patching over a part in your endothelium, that is the lining of your circulatory system. It's doing its job repairing that, but you have constantly high levels um, of inflammation, and so you're constantly having this damage in your body. So it has to keep doing that over and over again. What normally would happen is that lipoprotein carrier would come in and would lay it down, and just like it says right here, the high density lipoprotein would take that low density one that laid it down to help do repair to the cell, and it would strip it away and take it back to your liver for reprocessing. But when there is damage there constantly, it just keeps laying down those cholesterol molecules, and basically that's when you form a plaque. That plaque can either cause a clog, right, a blockage, or a thrombosis, which is a blood clot that gets loose in your system. And then, bad things happen, especially if that gets up to your brain. So, that's the basic of it, Hit the wrong things there. All right, so Val, well, hopefully, Merry Christmas to you. Hopefully, you will be able to come back, but I'm not going to be here much longer. So, let's check on Entropy real quick. Val with a $10 donation. In and out, leaving work now. Merry Christmas, Bill, and to your wife and baby. Appreciate it, Val, very much. And glad to see you around. Haven't seen you in a while, but I know not many people kind of understood that after 8 weeks off, I'm back over here. So guys, that's it for today. Tomorrow I should be back. I couldn't remember Monday. I was really off Monday. It's not sleeping well. But I will be back tomorrow, and we will be talking about how Nazis are socialist, because they are. And we're going to talk about how people who believe in CRT and neo-Marxism are basically Nazis, and that splitting hairs over their differences is ridiculous. So that's what we're going to talk about. I know I said something on Monday. I was like, I can't. It's like I'm going to talk about something on Friday. I can't remember what it was I talked about. Well, oh, this is what happens when you don't sleep well. But again, I will be back tomorrow, and I should be back Sunday at 3 p.m. for the siesta stream. We will talk about some of the news that I've seen throughout the week and some things I found interesting, maybe some things that are not on the beaten path, because honestly, when I talk about news, I don't like covering the same stuff that, like, the other 50 billion YouTubers that are out there talk about. So with that, guys, this has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well.